What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and today I wanted to talk about Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and I guess kind of my issues with the changes that were brought about in the story. This topic idea was actually brought up on Twitter today. I saw some people talking about how Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon really weren't as good as the original, and it got me thinking. I haven't actually beaten the game yet. I am at the if you're watching this video, I'll assume you've played it. I'm at the Pokemon League. I've actually battled. I don't actually. I battled Olivia, and I've battled the chick who has the flying types in the Elite Four. You know, they kept the Elite Four roughly the same, but I want to talk about from like the big changes that were obviously made within this game. So, for the most part in the game, and if you're checking out this video just because you want to know what was different, you don't care about spoilers, and that's cool too. So, pretty much from the first island, from when you start, all the way to when you go to the fourth island, there's really not much that really changes, or at least like the finale with the Aether Foundation. Once you get to the finale of the Aether Foundation, that's where things kind of change. Because up to that point, there's small differences. Like, for example, when you get your first Pokemon, they actually they run up to save you. That didn't happen in the first game. So there's subtle differences like that. Some of the trials are a little different. But for the most part, the first three islands, pretty much copy and paste from the first game. Once you get to the Aether Foundation, that's where things kind of change a little bit, and you've got to deal with the Ultra Recon Squad as well, which is a random group of people who are trying to find a way to stop Necrozma, because Necrozma is going to like bring darkness to the whole world and destroy everything. So that's kind of a story difference. You know, you'll occasionally run into the Ultra Recon Squad as you're going through the story, and honestly, I feel like this was probably the biggest disappointment because the Ultra Recon Squad is like a whole new group. They're not like Team Rocket or anything because they're not an evil organization, but there's really not much depth to their character arc. You know, they'll just randomly show up, and as they're not from this world, they're from a different dimension, and they don't really understand, you know, how I guess human social interaction really works, because they act very robotic for most of the time. And it's kind of like every time they show up, they learn a little bit more from like one conversation with you, even though your character can't even talk. So there's that whole thing. You'll battle them once or twice throughout the story, but other than that, there's really not too much that goes on with them. So move on through the story. You get to the Aether Foundation for the final time, you know, where you have to deal with Guzma and Lusamine. And the big difference here, you know, in the first game, Ultra Beast, it was the jellyfish one, I don't know the name off the top of my head, is the one that takes Lusamine in there. In this game, she makes the wormhole open, you know, using Cosmog, and she just walks in of her own accord. Her and Guzma. She doesn't get pulled in there. After that, you go to your fourth island. You do some of the, you know, trial stuff. And, you know, there's not much that really goes on with that. Same thing kind of happens with Team Skull showing up, wanting to have you help bring, you know, Guzma and Lusamine back. So that part's pretty much the same. But the difference here is the Ultra Recon Squad obviously knows how to, you know, go through these different wormholes that Lusamine and Guzma are in the Ultra Dimension, or whatever you want to call it. So you go through this whole process. You do the same thing where you have to get the, you know, the moon. I think it's like the moon key and the sun key. You have to have both of them, and then you have to go to that little pedestal that's behind where you do that trial with the new dragon fighting type Pokemon. So you go back there, and here's where it's really different, is you battle Necrozma for the first time. After Necrozma absorbed, it depends on the game you play. For me, I had to battle a Necrozma, I believe it was a Lunala. Yeah, because I had Ultra Moon. And then after you beat that, Or no, it might have been Solgio, because I remember it makes me go in there as Solgio. Okay, so you beat whatever it is. You beat Necrozma. Necrozma retreats back in there. Then you have to hop on Solgio or Lunala, depending on your version. And the Ultra Recon Squad is like, oh, they've acknowledged you. You know, maybe you can be the one to save us. And here's where my biggest disappointment was with this game. So you hop on either Lunala or Solgio. You go through the Ultra Wormhole. You get to, I forget what it's called, Ultra Megalopolis or something. I thought this was going to be, based on all the preview information we got before the game came out, I thought this was going to be like a whole brand new area we were going to get to explore, like the size of an island, one of the islands. Like, I thought this was going to be like a big area, tons of new Pokemon to capture, you know, go through all these different wormholes to see different Pokemon. But no. Once you get to Ultra Megalopolis, I'm hoping that's what it's called. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. You literally go up some stairs. Actually, I think you have to... No, yeah. You go up some stairs. Necrozma's at the top. You beat a huge buffed up Necrozma who has the totem powers on top of being a legendary. So it is a complete BS fight to begin with. But once you've beaten that, that's pretty much it for the side story. I felt like it was a lot more of a deep story going into the Ultra Wormhole. Or you didn't even go through the Ultra Wormhole, really. You went through one. And you battled Lusamine, who had been taken over by the Ultra Beast. I felt like that was a much better story than, okay, you know, you still go through the portal and see what's going on with Lusamine and Guzma. But after that, they're just kind of like side characters. They're just kind of like, oh, we're not evil anymore. What can we do to help you stop all of this? Because they basically, you save them, then you have to go to Megalopolis and defeat Necrozma again. Because the first time you battle Necrozma in the outside world, before you go through the Ultra Wormhole, Guzma and Lusamine are already out there. So you don't really have to worry about them anymore. And the whole arc about, you know, Lily and Lusamine's kind of like interactions, about Lily trying to push Lusamine to being a better person, you don't really get any of that in this game, and that was what was really good about Lily's character arc, which developed her to, you know, doing that. After the whole Guzma and Lusamine thing, they're just like, okay, we're good guys now, and we disappear from the story completely. And that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously, there could be something at the end of the game, you know, after I defeat the Elite Four, but I'm sure it's just going to be the same thing where Lily goes to Kanto to be a Pokemon trainer, and that's pretty much it. I can't say for sure. If I'm wrong, I'll do a follow-up video on this, on my entire thoughts, and that'll probably be after I do post-game stuff. But just this part of the story right here is just where I had the most issues, because it's like, you go up some stairs, you beat Necrozma, Necrozma is kaput, you go back, the world is safe, then you're ready to just go back on your journey. There was no development with this Ultra Recon Squad and this Ultra Wormhole stuff. It didn't really feel like it happened over like an hour time span. It's like you beat Necrozma, you went inside, you beat Necrozma again, you left, everyone went back to being happy. It didn't feel like there was an actual threat like all the Pokemon games have. It just felt kind of silly. And I think that's the biggest issue people had with this story as opposed to the first one. Yes, the first game wasn't the best, you know, the whole thing with like not having badges or and it being on islands, doing weird trials, like people had issues with that. But at least it was a concrete story of, you know, point A to point B. This game kind of goes point A to almost being at point B, then taking a point C, and then never finishing point B. So, that's pretty much my thoughts on that. I know something I do like that they kind of are, I guess, pushing was more of Hau's character arc in the second game. Because in the first game, he really didn't develop that much. We did see that, you know, after the whole Aether Foundation stuff, he wanted to take stuff more seriously. But, you know, it really didn't amount to too much in Endgame. But apparently, Hao is the Pokemon League champion now instead of being Kukui. So that's a good thing for his character arc. And they even added a little bit of story where you find out that Hao actually beat Hala. You know, he wanted to... I believe Hala's his grandfather. It's either his father or his grandfather. I'm pretty sure it's his grandfather. But he beats Hala, and they actually go on to, you know, firmly state that. And I thought that was a good change for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. But for the most part, most of what happens with the big changes in the story are really not that good. But anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on why the changes that they made to the story really weren't that great. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of the changes in the game if you have played it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. I will see you all next time.